They say the most dangerous strangers are not the ones outside your gate, but the ones you open your doors to. She came with a smile, soft hands, and promises of love. To everyone, she was perfect. But sometimes, perfection is the deadliest mask. You're watching Nightfall Tales by Wura, where stories breathe and shadows speak. Amara had been struggling. Between office deadlines and caring for little Tommy, life was becoming too much. Her husband David, though supportive, traveled often for work. The house felt heavy, every sound amplified in Amara's ears, the clatter of dishes, the soft cries of her daughter, the constant ringing of her phone. One evening, just before dusk, Amara sat exhausted at the dining table. Papers were scattered, Tommy was restless, and she whispered under her breath, "God, I need help." And then, there was a knock at the door. Amara opened it to find a woman standing there. Grace. Slim, graceful, with a warm smile that seemed to light up the hallway. She spoke softly, "Good evening, Ma. I heard you are looking for someone to help with the child?" Amara froze. She hadn't told anyone. Not even her neighbors. Yet Grace seemed to know. Her voice was gentle, her hands delicate, and when she held Tommy for the first time, the little girl, usually shy with strangers, leaned into her arms as if they had known each other for years. Amara felt relief for the first time in weeks. It was as if her prayer had been answered at the exact moment she whispered it. But as Grace smiled and rocked Tommy, her eyes, just for a second, grew cold, sharp, and calculating. A look Amara did not notice. Grace settled quickly into their home. She cleaned without being asked. She cooked meals that tasted like Amara's late mother's recipes. She told bedtime stories that lulled Tommy to sleep. David, returning from a trip, was surprised. "Wow, Amara, you found the perfect nanny." Amara smiled with relief. Grace was everything she dreamed of. And more. The neighbors praised her. Church members admired how Amara had found such a gem. Even Tommy seemed happier, giggling more, clinging less to her mother's dress. But sometimes, at night, when Amara walked past Tommy's room, she could hear Grace whispering strange words, words that didn't sound like prayers, words that chilled the air. The first time, Amara brushed it off. Maybe she's singing her own lullabies, she told herself. But one night, she paused longer. The whispers were low, rhythmic, almost like chanting. And when she peeked in, she found Tommy sitting upright, eyes wide open, staring at Grace as though under a spell. Amara's heart skipped. But Grace turned, smiled warmly, and said, "She couldn't sleep, Ma. I was just telling her a story. The perfect nanny. Always with a perfect answer." Yet something in Amara's spirit stirred uneasily. Weeks passed. Grace became a shadow in the house, always present, always helpful. But with every passing day, strange things began to happen. Tommy started drawing pictures. Dark drawings. A woman with long hair standing over a small child. Sometimes, she would say, "Auntie Grace told me secrets." Amara noticed things misplaced. Her wedding photo frame turned face down. A Bible left open, its pages marked with symbols she didn't recognize. And then came the night of the scream. Amara woke suddenly at 2 a.m. to Tommy's terrified cry. She rushed into the girl's room and found her trembling, pointing at the window. "She said someone is coming for me, Mummy. She said if I don't listen, they will take me away." Amara pulled her close, shaking. "Who said that?" Tommy whispered, "Auntie Grace." The house fell silent. Grace's room was dark, the door closed. But as Amara stood there holding her daughter, she felt something, a chill, like unseen eyes watching from the shadows. The perfect nanny was beginning to feel less than perfect. The morning after Tommy's scream, Amara's hands shook as she packed her daughter's lunchbox. She tried to convince herself it was just a child's imagination. Kids say strange things sometimes, don't they? Grace entered the kitchen, smiling, her hair neatly tied, her voice calm. "Good morning, Ma. I already ironed Tommy's uniform." Amara forced a smile. "Thank you, Grace." But her heart was heavy. Later that afternoon, Amara went to her office friend, Chioma. She lowered her voice. Chioma, do you believe a child can sense things? Chioma frowned. Amara, what are you saying? Amara sighed, her eyes moist. Since Grace came, Tommy has been saying strange things. She draws pictures, dark ones. She screams at night. And she says Grace whispers to her. Chioma leaned forward, whispering. Be careful. Sometimes, these nannies, they are not who they seem. Do you even know her family background? Amara froze. She had never asked. She realized she knew nothing about Grace. No relatives, no references, not even where she truly came from. That night, Amara looked at Grace differently. She noticed how Grace's smile never fully reached her eyes. And for the first time, she felt fear. One evening, David returned from work earlier than expected. The house was quiet, too quiet. He called out, Amara? Tommy? No answer. He followed the faint sound of humming to Tommy's room. The door was slightly open. Inside, Grace sat cross-legged on the floor, holding Tommy's hands. A candle flickered between them. David's heart pounded. What is this? He shouted. Grace looked up calmly, her face serene. It's nothing, sir. Just a small game. She was restless, so I was teaching her focus. Tommy, however, looked pale. Her eyes avoided her father's. David was furious. This is not a game. No candles in the child's room, do you hear me? Grace bowed her head gently. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. But as David stormed out, Amara noticed something on the floor. Drawings. Circles, strange marks, and in the center, a stick figure of a small girl. Amara's stomach twisted. She picked it up later when Grace wasn't watching, her hands trembling. That night, as she and David lay in bed, Amara whispered, something is wrong with Grace. Something is very wrong. But David, exhausted and skeptical, brushed it off. Maybe you're overthinking. She's been helping us. Don't start imagining things. Amara's eyes stayed open long after David slept. She knew she wasn't imagining. The house itself seemed to know it too. At exactly 3 a.m., Amara awoke to a strange sound. A soft creak. The kind a door makes when opened slowly. Her heart raced. She glanced beside her. David was still asleep. She tiptoed down the hallway, the cold tiles chilling her bare feet. The sound grew louder, a faint shuffle of steps. It was coming from Tommy's room. Amara's pulse hammered in her ears. She pushed the door open. Grace was standing there. In the dark. Over Tommy's bed. Her hand hovering above the child's chest as though feeling her heartbeat, or something deeper. Grace! Amara's voice cracked. Grace turned slowly, her eyes glowing faintly in the shadows, then dimming back to normal. She smiled, calm, as though nothing had happened. I was just checking if she was breathing well, Ma. Children sometimes choke at night. I wanted to be sure. Her voice was smooth, convincing. But Tommy stirred in her sleep, whispering, Don't let her take me, Mummy. Amara's body turned cold. She held her daughter tightly that night, never closing her eyes. And as the first light of dawn touched the curtains, one truth pressed heavily in Amara's chest. This was no ordinary nanny. This was something else. The next morning, Amara sat at the dining table, staring at her cup of tea. The steam rose and faded, just like her peace of mind. Grace walked in, dressed neatly, carrying Tommy's school bag with her usual pleasant smile. Good morning, Ma. I packed Tommy's things already. Amara forced a smile. Thank you. Grace left to help Tommy get ready. Amara's hands trembled as she lifted the cup to her lips. She whispered to herself, No. I'm not imagining this. Later that afternoon, she visited Pastor Emmanuel, a kind man in their church. She leaned close and confided. "Pastor, I feel uneasy about the nanny I hired. She's perfect in every way, but there's something strange. My daughter draws things. She says Grace whispers to her. And last night, I saw her standing over Tommy at 3 a.m. The pastor frowned, his voice low. Sister Amara, sometimes the devil disguises as an angel of light. Pray. And be watchful. Not every helper is sent by God. Amara nodded, her chest heavy. When she returned home, Grace greeted her with a bright smile, serving her dinner. But for the first time, Amara didn't see the smile. She saw the mask. And masks eventually fall. David came home late, tired but happy. Grace had cooked his favorite meal. She served him gently, bowing slightly, her soft voice soothing his weariness. David chuckled. Amara, we should be thanking God for this girl. She's an angel in disguise. Amara froze, her fork clattering on her plate. Angel? David, don't say that. He frowned. Why not? Look how much lighter your load is. Tommy loves her. The house is peaceful. Why are you suddenly looking for faults? Amara's voice trembled. Because I see things you don't see, David. Last night, I saw her in Tommy's room. She was standing over her. David sighed, rubbing his temples. Amara, you're stressed. You're reading too much into this. Please, let's not chase away the best help we've ever had because of paranoia. Grace entered at that moment, carrying juice, smiling innocently. Sir, Ma, I made some fresh juice. I hope you'll like it. David beamed. You see? Perfect. Amara's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, don't you see it? But Grace's smile stayed fixed, calm, unshakable. And Amara knew she was alone in this fight. One rainy evening, Amara went into Grace's room while she was out buying groceries. At first, everything looked neat, the bed well made, clothes folded. But then Amara noticed a small wooden drawer tucked under the bed. It was locked. Her heart pounded. She pulled at it. Locked. She checked the wardrobe for keys. Nothing. She bent down again, listening. Inside, something rattled softly when she shook it. She whispered to herself, "What are you hiding, Grace?" Suddenly, the front door opened. Amara panicked, pushing the drawer back under the bed. She hurried out, pretending to be searching for her scarf in the living room. Grace entered, drenched from the rain, holding a bag of foodstuffs. She smiled, but this time, her eyes lingered on Amara a little longer than usual. And for the first time, her smile did not look like kindness. It looked like a warning. That night, Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She could still hear the soft rattle from the locked drawer. She knew whatever was inside it held the answers. But she also knew that opening it might unleash something she wasn't ready for. The perfect nanny was no longer just a blessing. She was a storm waiting to break. The rain poured heavily that night, thunder shaking the windows. David had traveled again for work, leaving Amara and Tommy alone with Grace. Amara waited until the house fell silent. Grace's light was off. Tommy was asleep. Slowly, Amara crept into Grace's room. Her hands shook as she pulled the drawer back out from under the bed. She had taken one of David's old keys earlier, hoping it would fit. Her heart thudded as she slid it into the lock. Click. The drawer opened. Inside, Amara froze. There were photographs, old, faded pictures of different children. None of them Tommy, but all around Tommy's age. Boys, girls, smiling innocently. On the back of each photo was a mark. A symbol she had seen before, the same one Tommy had drawn on paper. Beside the photos lay a small black pouch. Amara opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were strange items, a lock of hair tied with red thread, tiny carved bones, and what looked like a small doll made of cloth and ash. Her breath caught. Her knees nearly gave way. This was not normal. This was not human. Just then, the door creaked. Amara spun around. Grace stood there, her face calm, rainwater dripping from her hair though she had been inside for hours. She looked at the open drawer, then at Amara. Her smile returned, slow, cold, deliberate. You shouldn't have touched my things, Ma. Amara's breath came in quick gasps. She tried to speak, but words failed. Grace stepped closer, her shadow stretching across the room. Curiosity, Grace whispered, is a dangerous thing. Those photos, those children, none of them listened. Their mothers didn't believe. Just like your husband. Amara's legs trembled. What do you want from us? Why are you here? Grace tilted her head, her smile widening. Your daughter. She's special. Pure. Perfect. She sees what others don't. That's why she trusts me. Amara's voice broke. Stay away from my child. Grace chuckled softly, walking toward her. But I already have her, Ma. You're the one losing her. Amara lunged forward, slamming the drawer shut, clutching the photos and pouch against her chest. She ran out of the room, locking the door behind her. Grace didn't chase. She just stood there in the dark, her laughter following Amara down the hall like a shadow. That night, Amara sat in Tommy's room, holding her daughter close, the strange items beside her. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered prayers over and over. But deep inside, she knew this was just the beginning. David returned the next morning. Amara wasted no time. She placed the photos, the pouch, and the doll on the dining table. Look! This is what I found in her room. Are you still saying I'm imagining things? David looked at the items, his face pale. He picked up a photo, staring at the strange mark. Where did she get these? Amara shouted, that's what I've been saying. We don't know her, David. We never checked her past. She just showed up. And now she's after Tommy. Before David could answer, Grace entered the dining room, carrying breakfast on a tray. She froze when she saw the items on the table. For the first time, her mask cracked. Her smile vanished. David stood, his voice firm. Grace, what is all this? Grace's eyes flickered from the photos to the pouch to Amara's face. Then, slowly, her lips curved back into a smile, but this time, it was sharp, mocking. Sir, I think it's time you chose who you really trust. Your wife's fears. She glanced at Amara, or the nanny who's been perfect for your home. The air grew heavy. David looked from his trembling wife to the calm, smiling nanny. The house seemed to hold its breath. And in that moment, Amara realized this wasn't just a fight for her child. It was a fight for David's belief. Because if he didn't stand with her now, Grace would win. The silence after Grace's mocking words weighed like iron. David's voice was low. Grace, please step outside. She bowed slightly, her smile unfading. Of course, sir. She left the room gracefully, closing the door softly behind her. Amara grabbed David's arm. David, you see now. She's dangerous. You saw those things yourself. David rubbed his forehead, torn. I don't know what this is, Amara. Maybe it's some cultural thing. Maybe. Amara slammed the table. Don't you dare make excuses for her. You think a lock of hair and bones in a pouch is cultural? David's eyes softened. He hugged her tightly. Okay. We'll get to the bottom of this. But in the corner of the room, the pouch trembled slightly, as though something inside was alive. Neither of them noticed. That night, David told Grace she would be leaving the house the next day. She smiled calmly. Yes, sir. If that is what you want. But her eyes lingered on Tommy. And in that glance, Amara saw a silent promise, this is not over. That night was unlike any other. The wind howled against the windows. Doors creaked though no one touched them. Tommy cried out in her sleep, clutching her chest, whispering, "She's calling me, Mummy, she's calling me." Amara knelt by her daughter's bed, praying desperately. David paced, restless. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed the house. From the hallway came the sound of soft footsteps. Grace's voice floated through the dark, calm and haunting. "You can't send me away, sir. She belongs with me." Amara clutched Tommy tighter. "In Jesus' name, leave my house." The door swung open violently. Grace stood there, her eyes gleaming unnaturally. Her shadow stretched unnaturally long across the floor. David grabbed a chair. "Grace, stop this madness." She laughed, a sound too deep for her slender frame. "You don't even know who I am, sir. But your daughter does. She hears me. She sees me. She chose me." Tommy screamed, covering her ears. "Mummy, make her stop." Amara shouted prayers, her voice cracking with desperation. David swung the chair, but it passed through Grace as though she were mist, then slammed against the wall. For the first time, David's eyes widened in terror. This was no ordinary nanny. The night ended with Grace vanishing into the shadows, leaving the house in eerie silence. When dawn came, the family looked broken, Amara pale, David shaken, Tommy exhausted from crying. David finally admitted, "You were right, Amara. This isn't human. We need help." Amara nodded weakly. "I told you, she's after Tommy. We need to fight back." But when they checked Grace's room, everything was gone. No clothes. No photos. No pouch. Not even the locked drawer. It was as if she had never lived there. Amara shivered. She didn't leave. She's still here. Somewhere. That evening, Tommy drew another picture. This time it was their house, and standing outside the gate was Grace, smiling, holding Tommy's hand. Amara's breath caught. "David, look." David's face hardened. For the first time, the doubt in his eyes was gone. But as thunder rumbled again in the distance, they both knew this was not just a fight for their daughter. This was a war. The house felt like a cage. Amara and David barely slept, taking turns watching over Tommy. Every shadow seemed alive, every creak in the walls a warning. David finally called Pastor Emmanuel. "Please, come to the house. We need prayers. We need help." The pastor arrived with 2 elders from the church. They anointed the doors, prayed loudly, and declared the house sanctified. For a few hours, peace returned. But that night, as the family gathered in the living room, the television switched on by itself. Static. Then images. Not random images. Photographs. The same ones Amara had seen in Grace's drawer, the children. Their faces flashed on the screen, one by one, their eyes hollow. Then came Tommy's face. The screen flickered. Grace appeared, smiling, her voice calm and clear. "You can lock doors. You can pray. But you can't keep her from me." The TV went black. Tommy whimpered, clutching Amara's arm. "Mummy, she said she's coming tonight." The rain fell hard again. Amara stayed in Tommy's room, David by her side, refusing to let her out of sight. Around midnight, a loud crash came from the kitchen. Pots and plates scattered as though thrown by invisible hands. David rushed out with a flashlight. In that split second, the window in Tommy's room burst open. A cold wind swept in, extinguishing the lamp. Amara screamed, holding Tommy tight. But invisible hands yanked at the child, pulling her toward the window. Amara fought with all her strength, shouting, "You will not take my daughter." Then Grace appeared at the window. Not as a housemaid. Not even human. Her eyes glowed, her skin pale as moonlight, her smile wide and terrifying. "She belongs to me, Amara. Let her go." Amara screamed prayers, holding tighter, but Tommy's small body was being dragged away. David rushed back in, grabbing his daughter's other arm. Together, they pulled her back inside as Grace's hands, long, claw-like, reached further into the room. With a final desperate cry, Amara grabbed the anointing oil from the bedside table and flung it at Grace. The liquid splashed across her face. Grace shrieked, a sound like breaking glass, and vanished into the storm outside. Tommy collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing. But Amara knew it wasn't over. Grace wasn't done. She would come again. And next time, she would be stronger. The family didn't wait. By dawn, Amara and David took Tommy to Pastor Emmanuel's church. They knelt before the altar, trembling. "Pastor," she tried to take her. "We can't do this alone. Please, help us." The pastor prayed over Tommy, laying hands on her. "This child is marked. But so is your faith. You must not fear. Fear is her weapon." Amara's voice cracked. "But she's too strong. She comes into our home like she owns it." The pastor's eyes burned with fire. "Then we will meet her head-on. Tonight, we stand together." That evening, Amara and David returned home with Pastor Emmanuel and the church elders. They filled the house with prayer and worship, their voices rising above the storm outside. But as midnight approached, the air turned heavy. The walls groaned. Candles flickered. And then, Grace appeared. Not through the door. Not through the window. She stepped out of the shadows themselves, her form shifting, her eyes burning. Her smile stretched unnaturally wide. "You think prayers can stop me? She is mine. She chose me." The room shook violently. Objects flew across the room. Tommy screamed as unseen hands tried to pull her again. Amara fell to her knees, tears streaming. "God, please, don't let her take my child." David wrapped his arms around Tommy, shouting scriptures, while the pastor and elders lifted their voices, their prayers clashing against Grace's laughter. The war had begun. The perfect nanny had revealed her true face. The house shook as if an earthquake had entered. Windows rattled, the lights flickered, and a low growl echoed through the rooms. Grace stood at the center, her figure no longer human. Her skin cracked like dry clay, revealing veins of glowing fire beneath. Her eyes burned red. Her voice, layered with many others, boomed. "You called me in. You begged for help. You handed her to me." Amara shook her head furiously, clutching Tommy close. "No. I never." Grace laughed, a sound so sharp it cut the air. "When you prayed for rest, when you wished for freedom, you opened the door. And I walked in." Amara's heart sank. She remembered that night, the night she cried silently, exhausted, whispering into the darkness, "God, send me someone. Anyone. I can't do this anymore." She hadn't known someone else was listening. The pastor raised his staff and shouted, "You came in through deceit, Grace. Tonight, you leave in defeat." The elders erupted in prayer, voices clashing with Grace's shrieks. The air grew thick. Chairs levitated. The cross on the wall trembled. David grabbed Amara's hand, shouting over the storm. "Hold on to Tommy. Don't let go no matter what happens." Tommy's little body stiffened. She whispered with wide eyes, "Mummy, she's inside me." The room froze. Grace smiled, standing still now. "She's right. I'm not outside anymore. I am home." Amara screamed. The real battle had only just begun. The elders encircled Tommy, their chants louder, fiercer, shaking the very walls. Tommy's small frame convulsed, her voice switching between a child's cry and Grace's mocking laughter. Amara fell on her knees, clutching her daughter's hand. "Tommy, listen to me. You are my child. You are God's child. You are not hers." Grace's voice came out through Tommy, deep and cruel. "She chose me. She loves me more than you." Amara's tears poured. She pressed her forehead against her daughter's. "No. You are mine. And I will fight until my last breath to keep you." Suddenly, Pastor Emmanuel lifted his staff and thundered. "In the name of Jesus, you spirit of destruction, leave this child now." The house split with a deafening scream. Tommy's body arched violently, then slumped as if lifeless. For a breathless second, silence reigned. Then Tommy gasped. She opened her eyes. "Mommy?" Grace's figure appeared again, but smaller now, weaker, flickering like dying fire. She screamed at Amara. "You prayed me in. You will never be free of me." With trembling but fierce faith, Amara stood tall. "No. I didn't pray you in. I prayed for help and God sent me strength. You were only a counterfeit. And tonight, you're finished." She picked up the anointing oil, poured it on the floor where Grace's shadow writhed, and with the pastor's final command, the spirit dissolved into nothingness, a scream fading into silence. The storm outside stopped instantly. The house grew still. David sank to his knees, holding Amara and Tommy. All three wept, clinging to one another. Pastor Emmanuel wiped his brow. The perfect nanny was never perfect. She was the warning. Be careful who you invite into your home, into your life, into your heart. Not everyone who knocks should be let in. Amara kissed her daughter's forehead, whispering, "You are safe now. And I will never, ever let go." The family stood together in the quiet dawn, broken yet stronger, scarred yet alive. But deep in the silence, as the first rays of sun entered the house, a faint whisper brushed through the air. The perfect nanny always finds another door. Sometimes, evil doesn't break down the door. Sometimes, it smiles, knocks gently, and offers to help. The perfect nanny was not just a story, it was a warning. Parents, be careful who you trust with your children. Because while you are busy, tired, or desperate for rest, someone else may be watching, waiting for the smallest crack to slip in. And when they do, they don't just steal innocence. They steal peace. They steal lives. They steal souls. So guard your home. Guard your heart. Guard your children. Because not every hand that rocks the cradle is meant to keep it safe. This was the perfect nanny. And remember, she could knock on any door. Even yours.